Tape. Are we out of the woods for the time being? Simple question, maybe complex answer. Let's ask Adam Parker, the founder and CEO of Trivariate Research, a CNBC contributor as well. It's the question of the moment. What's the answer?
No.
We're not out of the woods.
No.
To what degree?
Well, I mean, it's multifaceted. I mean, even before this, I'd say a week or two ago, we were telling people, look, everything looks worse than it did 3 months ago, right? Valuation, speculation, interest rates, earnings expectations, all that cocktail. You throw in here lack of confidence. I think it's a problem. I think everyone I know and I've talked to over the last 5 days, kind of nonstop, is moving deposits out of any bank they're worried about to one of the big 3 or 4. So is it over just because things are bouncing today? No, it's not over. How could it be? So if you end up, if you're a CFO or you're somebody, in charge of making financial decisions for your organization, you find out a month or two from now that one of the banks you're with isn't in business, you're kind of a chucklehead. You didn't move into something safer, aren't you?
What is that, a sample of 2 people who are moving money out of a smaller bank?
Probably about 100.
I don't want to make
100.
any...
I mean, every private equity investor, every private equity fund, every hedge fund, people since the middle of last week have been thinking about their balances and where they should move them and what bank's safe and what's not. There's just the risk reward of going to something. It's just skewed asymmetrically now. So, do I think regional banks? Do we need so many of them? No, we don't need so many. We have a very weird country, right? In the top 3,000 U.S. equities in our database at Trivariate, there's like 300 banks that are public. Do we need 300? So the old system of I go see Scott at the corner, I like Scott, he's my banker, that's become a bit of an anachronism.
I don't understand what you're calling for. You thinking there's going to be a broader crisis within regional banks?
I think several.
I don't want to have I don't want things to get too hyperbolic in what's going to happen. Oh my God, 100 people pulling all their stuff out of the bank.
But I just think more and more of these things are going to have problems with their deposits. I'm not, you know me, I'm not histrionic about it. Do I think that J.P. Morgan is going to be
in a very mellow sense?
I think it'll be a share gainer. Look, I think really there's two issues. One, and I don't know how we can go into the bank nerd stuff, but basically this hold to maturity part of the balance sheet that you're not allowed to access. If rates continue to be elevated versus where people made investments, then the banks are just way too expensive. We wrote in our note, I think you saw, there's an intellectually honest sort of loss-adjusted price to tangible book.
So if you're going to be Bank of America is too expensive, the stock wasn't the stock below book value?
No, absolutely not. No, I mean the stock was trading around 1.5 times
or book value.
1.5 times tangible into last week. If you look at what they reported in their December 2022 10K, it was around $630 billion or so of hold to maturity assets, about $100 billion loss on those. Their book values, tangible books, 175. So then the things.
You use a different methodology.
But everyone looks at price to book or price to tangible book. I'm just saying if you adjusted for the mark-to-market losses on a bank like that, then it's just much more expensive on price to tangible. It's not. Bank of America's fine in terms of viability. Don't misquote me in any way. I'm just saying it's not as cheap as you think it is on price to tangible. That's all.
We wouldn't misquote you at all. You said the words on TV. The words are the words.
Yeah, the words are the words. And I did not say that there was a viability problem with any of the big banks like that. But I think some of the marginal regional ones where they have sort of, people are worried about deposits.
So what's the takeaway then? What's the takeaway for the market?
When you have this kind of volatility and uncertainty, it should be rewarded with lower multiples. It's bad for the stock market. And I think the stock market's going lower. I think it's going 5, 10, 15% lower from here because almost all the major things I look at look worse. Now, it could be there's some big positioning argument. What are you rooting for with the Fed? That's the conversation I've been on all day since CPI.
Well, of course.
What are you rooting for? Are you rooting for 125 bips and then a pause? Are you rooting for them to cut? I had somebody on the phone last night adamant that if they don't cut by 100 basis points, the banking system doesn't make any sense. So I think there's so much smart people that are confused about what they're rooting for. That uncertainty to me means lower multiples.
Forget about whoever is rooting for what should they do? What do you think they're going to do?
I think they should pause
right now.
Yeah. Kind of see where we are, and certainly I don't think they should raise anymore. I think the CPI is really an interesting metric, and the more all of us focus on in the last couple of years, most of the things that people need have deflated massively. All the commodities, look at Bloomberg Commodity Index, or wherever you look at it, and then some of the things that, are kind of more discretionary are still inflating. So I think you kind of have to parse it. The main thing that is an issue, which we talked about for a long time, is the shelter portion where, home prices are still high and cost to borrow is high, so people are renting, and that's propping up that owner's equivalent rent portion of CPI. But if you strip that away, a lot of things have deflated a lot, right? Oil and other products.
Yeah, but if I had to ask you that question last week before all this happened, I don't think you'd say they shouldn't do anymore. So are you profoundly changed as a result of what's happened
I
here?
think it makes sense for them to pump the brakes and pause. You have kind of a crisis that causes them to, I think, take a step back and reassess.